Gestern war ein ganz besonderer Tag, ein schöner, entspannender Nachmittag und Abend mit euch allen. Deshalb freut es uns ganz besonders heute, dass ihr alle wiedergekommen seid und noch ein paar mehr. Und wir können euch versprechen, ihr werdet es nicht bereuen. Gestern hatte ich das Vergnügen und die Ehre, einen Vizebürgermeister zu begrüßen. Heute haben wir hier 2 Bürgermeister und 2 BürgermeisterInnen. Und ich begrüße ganz herzlich den Bürgermeister der Stadt Baden, Stefan Cyril, vertreten heute durch die Gemeinderätin Frau Judith Händler. Ich begrüße ganz herzlich die Vizebürgermeisterin der Stadt Baden, Helga Kissner. Sie hat gesagt, sie kommt etwas später, aber dann zu viel später, aber sie wird noch kommen. Now, welcome the mayor of Gacilly, the founder of the festival in Gacilly, Monsieur Jacques Roger. And I'm very pleased to welcome again, like yesterday, the Vice Mayor of Gacilly, Monsieur Philippe Noger. Let's keep on in France. I am very pleased to welcome the leading team of Gacilly, the president, le président du Gacilly, de la Festival Gacilly, Monsieur Auguste Coudray. Bravo! In Gacilly, Madame Stéphanie Retier. And a very important man for Gacilly, who is doing all the creative work, to present it, of course, to Jacques, the curator in Gacilly, Monsieur Cyril Drouhet. Natürlich alle 35 Fotografinnen und Fotografen, die wir gestern namentlich vorgestellt haben. Ihr könnt es jetzt nachlesen, 15 davon haben uns gestern durch ihre Ausstellungen geführt und das war wirklich spannend, bewegend und berührend zum Teil. Ich begrüße natürlich auch alle anderen, alle Journalistinnen und Journalisten, die heute hier sind. Und die meisten, außer die Fotografen, sind ja Medienvertreter. Ja, dann bleibt mir im Moment nur euch einen spannenden Abend zu wünschen, aber der ist garantiert.
Years ago, the French Academy of Sciences announced something unbelievable, something radically new to the world. It put it into a place which did not exist at the time. Today we call it public domain. It was so important because it would change the vision of our world, and it was photography. Yesterday, on the 19th of August, it happened in Paris, and it's the 183rd year since then that we live with photography, enjoy it, and are close to a miracle, to a daily miracle called photography. The reason why I was looking for words to coin it so precisely is that yesterday, on this very day, we went with all the journalists and all the photographers present through the exhibitions. Did listen, did watch, did look, did reflect, did enjoy, have been sad, have been angry, have been joyful. And at the end of this go-around, with a little luck by the god of weather, we ended up at a small restaurant at the tiny pond in Doppelhof Park. And it was like today, free seating. And so everybody found a spot to sit down. And this morning, one person approached me and told me the following: Lois, I looked around to find a spot, and then I picked one, and it was the right spot. And this happened to many of you. Wherever you did sit down, you have been on the right place. And this is home to you, because you're such a special group of people. You are really giving this photography, what we do here, together with Gacilly, a face, a voice. You transmit us into the world. And I'm extremely thankful for that. There's something happening what was not expected. I jokingly say, if 100 journalists come together, the Pope must be there. But we are here because photography is there, and maybe, I ask the question, maybe photography is even more important to explain the world. Could well be. Everybody should think about it and find his own answer. I am proud to be a photographer, and I'm even more proud to be a photographer and a partner of Gacilly and working on these exhibitions. Since 3 weeks ago, a Polish delegation came to Baden. They phoned me up and said, we are coming from the European Union, we're examining photo festivals. I thought, oh God, what is this? Examining photo festivals? Yes, we are traveling with Erasmus budget, and the European Union is observing photo festivals. Oh, come on, what's that? The European Union is watching us? Well, maybe in a different way, but then they came and they explained it to me. Led by a lady called Joanna Klinowska, and the organization is called FRSE, and they are really working on a work title called The Perfect Photo Festival, which sounds a little, a little bit strange, but what is that? But they explain what they are doing. And I'm proud to share with you what they are looking for. They're going to several photo festivals in Europe within the next 2 years. And it's a reason. The reason is that the mainstream media, in many cases, do not explain the world anymore in the proper way it should be for people who do not know much. In particular in times, it's not my opinion now, but I tell you I share with you what they told me. In particular in times when uncertain grounds are out there when it comes to communication and information. And the European Union recognized that there are photo festivals, and they are in high numbers. There are a few hundreds throughout Europe. And in all of these photo festivals, people spend time. Very important. In 4 months, which are free of charge, available 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that means free access for everyone. No one is excluded anymore for picking up information driven by visual means. And that makes a huge difference. You go there because you're seduced by world-class photography. You look You start reading, you try to understand, you reflect, you think, and maybe it triggers a change of mind, or even better, change of heart. And it's unbelievable that the European Union starts to think about this. I was blown away. I give you the names of the festivals they are visiting, because all of them need our respect. It's Cortona, it's Hamburg, it's Bratislava, it's Helsinki, it's Kaunas in Lithuania, it's Baden. But of course with Baden, we are not alone. We are together with someone, so it's also Lagaci. And then it's Perpignan, Ghibellina in Italy, and Landskrona in Sweden. It sounds like a wild mix, but it covers Europe. And it tells a lot where we stand. And that we have 300,000 visitors per year in Lagaci and also here in Baden does not look so much as a surprise anymore when you look at this. And I'm really proud that it happens. From there, I would take you to another observation, something what we kind of started, but it was a process. We did something, or we created something, calling it Culture of Solidarity. Why? Culture of Solidarity means that we give something away, that we share something, and it has to do with being a photographer. Many photographers I know, they act like one-person NGOs. Of course, they have all to pay their rents, they have to pay their insurances, they have to make a living. But it's not a money-driven life. It's a content-driven life. It's a life where they are believing into something, and all of us share the vision of creating a better world by preparing information. Visual information, because visual information is information with a heart. It's emotion, it's empathy, it's something which was not there in this way before. So 183 years ago, the birth of photography changed the world, and we are going to change it even further. We share work with Celje in Slovenia. Igor Rosina is here. He's in charge there. We have given one exhibition to them about the Global Peace Photo Award, and if I'm informed rightly, so far they opened 1 week after us, and so far there are 90,000 visitors for 100 images across the river there. Isn't that amazing? 90,000 people in a small town in Slovenia, born out of this. In Bratislava, we work with Václav Maček almost since the very beginning of having this joint venture with Lagaci. We give to the month of photography from some of the exhibitions some images, like an amuse-gueule, like an inspiration to look to what photo festivals can do. And I'm very proud that we continue on this path. And finally, we are having a collaboration with Thun in Austria, with Franz Gruber. This is a garden show, something completely different, just a garden show. People go there because they love plants, but within these plants, they find flowering images. And this is what we call culture of solidarity. And I think it's also something very remarkable what spring up from photography. Lastly, it's about saying thank you to the city of Baden and to many people who make this festival happen. And as an example, what's possible in a city like Baden, I would like to mention that we have set this festival since 2 years carbon neutral or CO2 free by asking citizens of Baden to support this and chip in money, chip in 1,000 euro per person, because we learned the hard way to use our earth is a valuable good if you get it in numbers. What we do here in Baden causes carbon in the value of 60,000 euro. And of course, if we would not compensate it, what right would we have to do to talk about environmental issues? And we wouldn't have had the budget, but the citizens of Baden understood the message and chipped in and helped. And this is something amazing, if you ask me, that there is almost a grassroots kind of movement below, which makes this festival fly, and the content, the meaning of the festival be real. At that point, because I'm saying thank you, I would like to thank my team, Johanna Reitmeier, Birgit Hofbauer, and Martin Ackerl, our technician, he sits up there on the right. And they did put together a reel looking back 5 years of having a festival in Baden. But before we show you this one, oh well, we can do the other way around. We talk after. We say thank you to you after. Let's have a break and look to beautiful images. Martin, please let us see how it was.
Gacilly-Baden. Got it? Sorry. Please come to the stage. Stefan Silocek, please come to the stage. Auguste Coudray, please come to the stage. I mean, Mrs. Handler. Yeah. The man who invented it all. Everybody would like to know, how does it feel to be 5 years old? Sorry? How does it feel to be 5 years old?
5 or 19 years old. It depends of you.
We are 5 years.
5, it's okay. I think it's fantastic to the mix between Lagacy and Baden. You know, Lagacy, it's a little village. It's not the same as Baden. You are 25,000 people here, and Lagacy it's 4,000 people. But for me, the spirit is the same. That's the key point. And secondly, I think it's really important to respect the work of the photographer. And I know that most of the photographers that here and a lot of before say it's fantastic to see the work in Lagacy and also to see the work in Baden. And thank you, Lois, and thank you, Silvia, and thank you all the team of your photo festival. It's fantastic. Bravo!
Same question. If you're 5 years old, what does it mean for you?
From the beginning to today, our mission had not changed. Moving, wearing awareness, sharing the hope of a responsible world. Mobilizing as many people as possible about environmental and social issues. It's here real our mission, and sure that with you, Lois, and your team, we have to success. And congratulations for what you do. We are very proud. Thank you very much.
representing the city and the festival. So how does it feel to be 5 years old?
I feel very young. Ich habe die Stimme noch im Ohr. Ist das was wir wirklich brauchen? Brauchen wir das? Diese vielen Pfosten überall. Und ist das wirklich notwendig? Und was das vielleicht kostet? Und 1000 Gründe. Ich habe sie alle noch im Ohr. 5 Jahre ist es her. Und ja, es ist notwendig. Es ist notwendig für die Kunst, für die Fotokunst, unbedingt diese Bühne zu schaffen hier in Baden. Wir haben so einen unachtsamen Umgang mittlerweile gelernt mit Fotos. Wir haben unsere Handys. Wir maßen uns nicht an, Maler zu sein oder gar Dirigent oder irgendwelche Stücke zu komponieren. Aber wir maßen uns alle an, große Fotokünstler zu sein und schaffen es, hunderte Fotos an einem Tag zu schießen. Und wenn wir sie anschauen, die anderen Urlaubsfotos, machen wir so. Ich glaube, in einer halben Sekunde ist ein Foto angeschaut. Hier. Wir haben 2 Runden, eine Parkrunde und eine Stadtrunde. 2 Stunden braucht jede Runde mindestens, um durchzugehen und sich jedes Bild genau anzuschauen, die Botschaft dahinter zu entdecken, und es sind nicht 2 Stunden. Es gibt Fotos, an denen hänge ich jetzt noch, obwohl ich sie schon vor 2 Monaten gesehen habe. Es sind Fotos, die uns wirklich viel und lange beschäftigen, die ein Spiegel sind der Gesellschaft, die uns vieles aufzeigen wollen, die uns mahnen, aber die uns auch viel Zuversicht geben. Ganz, ganz tolle Werke. Ich finde es einfach großartig. Ich kann da nicht viel dazu sagen. Mein Name ist Judith Händler, ich sage es noch einmal, ich bin Gemeinderätin, ich vertrete die Stadt, ich vertrete auch unseren Bürgermeister, der heute leider nicht kommen konnte, aber ich kann die besten Grüße übermitteln und einen enormen Dank an das Team, an jeden von Ihnen. Sie haben das so großartig gemacht, so etwas auf die Beine zu stellen. In unserer Stadt, ja, ich bin so stolz, ich war noch nie so stolz, Badenerin zu sein. Und ich hole jeden hierher, sich das anzuschauen, und ich hoffe, dass das noch lange, lange so weitergeht. Danke.
It's a photo festival, so we do some photos, isn't it? But for those who don't speak German, may I translate your key sentence, which moved my heart very much? So the key sentence was, I never have been so proud to be a citizen of Baden. Never ever before. Thank you so much. This is more than someone can ever expect, and it's owed to you, to the photographers, to the journalists who go out in the world to report about it, to talk about this beautiful idea created and born in Gacilly, in a tiny village in the west of France. The cradle of modern-day humanity, if you ask me. It's really wonderful, and thank you for having the trust in us that we can be your partner in crime. So, I'm the master of ceremonies, as you have recognized. This is why I wear this jacket, so that I'm recognizable. And now the real show starts. And before I introduce you to Mrs. Hilde Sandvik, I would like to give you a little outline for the night. It's a long night of photography. In the last 2 years, it was a test. And that you're still here means we have stand the test. We stood the test because it was outdoor at the Orangerie, and it was freezing cold. In my basement there are about 200 blankets, all blankets available around Vienna, I would say. And tonight we don't need it. It's warm, it warms our heart, and so we have time to speak about photography. Here are only enthusiasts, so we'll take our time. And as Silvia already said, you will not regret, but to make it easy for you, there's drinks in the background, there's chips and salt sticks, and of course there will be 2 breaks. The first break will be of, let's say, Hilde from now on in an hour or so. Hilde Sandvik is a television presenter of Norway, extremely experienced, extremely critical to what I do. So she will do it so much better. She will convince you. And she will talk about the future of Scandinavian photography with some of important protagonists who have been involved in either in creation, like Cyril, or in exhibitions, like 3 photographers of Scandinavia. After that, there's the award giving of the Thomas Jorda Award, and Beate Jorda, his widow, his former wife, is sitting here, and Thomas was the 3rd in the party to make this festival become reality. And unfortunately, he cannot be with us anymore. And together with the newspaper where he was working in a leading position, there was an award created to remember him. And after this, we will have a break. For those who need to smoke or the toilet, feel free. And then we have a reason to speak about something which is very uncomfortable. We have a war nearby. Ukraine is around the corner. And we will have 3 elements, 3 ways to look at war and to report about war. And this show will be conducted by Mr. Lars Boering, who used to be the head of WorldPress Photo and is now the director of the European School of Photography in Maastricht. So he's the right man to do that. And he has also the force to battle people from the Neue Zürcher Zeitung and from the New York Times, etc. And then we have a next break. And finally, we look to the souls of photographers. Nick Brandt cannot be here like some others. He did catch COVID, or better said, his wife did catch COVID in a very, very bad state. So he stayed home in California, but he will join us. And we will talk about what makes a photographer tick like a photographer, meaning not only going out there and do work, but start to think further. Why does a photographer need to create an NGO? This is an important thing. And after that, we give you a little taste of what does peace look like. And then we go for goulash soup and sausages to our hotel. And there's open end in the bar till forever. So enjoy Mrs. Hilde Sandvik. Here she comes. Hilde has many qualities. First, she has a really big mouth and talks sharp and thinks sharp. The problem is she cannot do what she does best all the time. She's an unbelievable singer of Norwegian tunes.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that now, Lois. And I have to admit, I love you from my deepest heart. And I love you for bringing happiness into my life all the time. And the biggest happiness in my life. But I don't like your scripts. Next year I will write a script for you and you will keep to that script. And
I know. The stage is yours.
And that is
yours.
And that's my only little thing that I have to say about you. Otherwise I love you.
Me too.
Since I'm here, and I have gotten this big opportunity to talk about Scandinavian photography because this year's topic is going north-west. So I will now invite up on stage Monsieur Cyril Drouhet up here. This, yeah, it's working. I think Martin will make.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Come up here.
It works.
I just want to know, as a very selfish and narcissistic Norwegian, why did you go up north?
Why do we go to the north? You know, since the first issue of Festival La Gacilly, we always want to show the precarious beauty of our earth through the vision of photographers, through the vision of artists. And it's true that it's very difficult at this time to speak about this beauty of nature, because human being is increasing madness and madness, and crazy and crazy. We see what happens now in Europe with the war, but it's important to be vigilant. And why the north? You know, I think two years ago, there was this crazy moment with the COVID pandemic, and everything stopped during some months. No cars, no industry, no people in the outside. It was like if the world has stopped.
Yeah.
And we could observe the nature, the environment, and see maybe something different. So maybe we can try to be a little bit optimistic because of it. And why north?
Yes.
You know that why not? So you know that every year we, with the Festival La Gacilly, we make a focus on a special area in the world. It was Viva Latina with South America, it was before with Japan, it was with Africa, with China, with Eastern countries. And I think northern countries, for the photography, is not a well-known photography in the world. And people from Denmark, people from Finland, people from Sweden, sorry, people from all these countries, they are very great talent, and we want to show this talent. But why, especially now?
Yeah.
Certainly, because they have a very special link with the richness of their homeland. And it's when you go in these kind of countries, you have this feeling of nature, this feeling of solitude. And I think that photographers of northern countries, they have some very different approaches for photography, but they have just this kind of thing in common. It's to observe the nature.
Come a little bit closer to me, so yeah.
It's to observe the nature. And that's what I like. They know the country, they know to observe the nature, when in the same spirit that we could do it during this COVID pandemic. And they are, I think, the artistic sentinels of this world changing. It's not, when you see Greta Thunberg, this teenager, it's why she's the new face of the climate change. Probably because she's in this kind of countries where you can observe this climate change. It's very important. And these photographers, they know what happens in the world, and they have this vision of the future that we have to keep. That's the reason why.
Oh, that was a lovely answer. Thank you so much, Cyril.
But all these photographers are very different, you know.
So
I said they have some different approach,
yeah.
but the other thing is the creativity of these photographers.
And that's because it's raining so much that we have to stay inside and think. Don't you think so?
I don't know.
It's one part of it, actually, I think. We will soon learn that, because I'm now going to invite up on stage some of the fantastic photographers that you actually chose for this festival.
Yes.
Can I ask, were you surprised what you found when you started looking for photographers up north?
To choose them?
Mm-hmm.
How to choose them? What we want is to have a panorama of the photography in an area. And the world photographer that you can discover at this time in Baden, Gacilly, and in Gacilly in Brittany, it's important, in the Morbihan. It's, you can see this creativity, you can see this talent, and what I was very found, it was this kind of poetry. They have this kind of melancholy, this kind of creativity, of surrealism too. When you see the work of Erik Johansson is completely different from the work of Ragnar Axelsson.
Yeah.
There is some photojournalism, there are creativity. They have a large view, a large panorama of the photography, of the modern photography today.
And now we're gonna invite up on stage both Ragnar Axelsson, Erik Johansson, and Tine Poppe. So please welcome up on stage. And thank you so much, Cyril.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Because now for the next minutes, half an hour, I don't know, we will talk about what is actually happening in the Scandinavian countries, and I'm so pleased to welcome you up here. Tine, should we sit in the middle here, or is it so we can be kind of a little bit of a balanced situation up here? Thank you, and I have to start asking the question, do you really look upon yourself as a Nordic photographer? Erik, you live in Prague.
Is this on? Yeah. I would say, yeah, it's hard to say if I really see myself as a Nordic photographer, but to me it's more about, my inspiration really comes a lot from the north, I think.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to those landscapes a lot. So yeah, I guess my influences are definitely in the north.
Can I ask if someone can put this on so we can start watching what is on the screen here? Now it is. Thank you so much. Tine, what do you think? Do you consider yourself as a Nordic photographer?
Well, I don't really think about it. Of course, my influence is nature, the solitude of Scandinavia. Not so many people as in Europe, and but yes, I'm definitely influenced by other Scandinavian photographers.
And who?
Who?
Yeah.
I'm very fond of Finnish photography. We have some great Finnish photographers here, and I'm influenced by like Kåre Kivijärvi, Tom Sandberg, many.
And I have to, this is my confession. Lois said that I'm a television presenter, but most of all, I actually make a radio show called Norsken, Svensken, or Dansken, which means the Norwegian, the Swede, and the Dane. And that is not the reason why I have excluded the Finns here. You mentioned Finnish photography. I think next year we need a whole night only to talk about Finnish photography. And I think if you would have had Finns up on stage as well, it's so grand. I mean, the traditional Finnish photography is really, really huge. So that was my little confession here. Ragnar, do you consider yourself to be a Nordic photographer?
Well, yeah, I do.
Yes. Just keep it up. So
I do. I feel like a bit like a little boat in the mist, you know, or Robinson Crusoe. I live on an island, so I'm a little bit far away from it. But I have been watching all the Nordic photographers as well as photographers around the world, and I really admire Nordic photography and the legacy they give. There's a sense of humor in Finns, like Esko Maniko and Tine is great, and Penty, and also the Norwegian and the Danish ones. It's really, and I think they're among the best today, some of them. And I get a lot of influence from them, even though I have a problem with, I don't envy anybody, it's just a drive, seeing great work, and that's a drive.
And I thought, even though we had this grand tour yesterday in the park, I will give an opportunity before we start talking about what we think about the future. I want to talk to each and every of you about your own work, because it has been such an influential part of all the Nordic photography. And Ragnar, I started here presenting, it was a photo of an airplane, and that's no coincidence. You have one of those.
Yeah. I did learn to fly, so I used my plane to do aerial work, and I mix it together with photographing people and in their environment. And I used my plane to cover the Icelandic glaciers. They're all retreating. They will, scientists tell me they will melt in 150, 200 years. They will be gone. Most of us will be in a better place by then, but I'm going to be here with Keith Richards and see how it goes.
Yeah, you're going to be with Keith Richards, because I've heard that you listen to Beatles when you make your photos, but you also listen to Stones.
I listen to everything, yeah. You know, I grew up in a dark room, so I didn't have a clock. So it was a certain Beatles song for each picture that I was printing, you know, the seconds. So when I traveled in Greenland, sleeping on the sea ice in tents and cabins, I only took one of the Beatle records, cassettes with me. And in the cold, it gets very slow. They get very, they're like even river at the end when it's very cold. So that was something that to keep me, you know, not being insane when you're up in the ice for 5 weeks, not knowing if there's anybody alive in the world. So it was a drive, yeah.
And I just want to ask, because since we're talking about the Nordic concept, when I think about Iceland, I think also about the faith that people have on Iceland. To look upon not only what you see in the world, but what you cannot see, the elves. The small elves.
Hidden people, yeah.
The hidden people.
They're everywhere. I'm one of them.
Yeah, and
you know, you learn from that. Even when you believe it or not, there's a lot of people who believe it.
Yeah.
And I can, since I was a kid growing up with it, I see faces and everything. Like the picture you're watching, you see a face. It's in the sand. There's this black sand on the coastline. It's a face. You can see it.
And here you can see some of your photos also up in Greenland. And I read that one of the first times you were there, you got a friend, Hilde.
Well, yeah.
And he told about the ice. I mean, Cyril said that what he considers to be Nordic is also that you experience the nature in a different way. And this is Greenland. And what did Ole say to you about the ice?
Yeah, he told me that you have to be, when you go out on the sea ice, you have to be positive. You have a choice. If you're negative, well, he saw in my eyes I was scared the first time I went out. And he said, "Are you afraid?" I said, "No." I was lying. I was afraid. And he said, "I see it in your eyes." You have a choice. It's a state of mind. You either go and be happy, and it's going to be a great journey ever, or you're miserable and you're negative, it's going to be terrible. And he told me when we were out on the sea ice, you can feel there is something here. And you kind of start feeling that. It makes you feel good. Even though it's very cold, you have to be just careful and, you know, wear your clothes. And so, the picture you're showing now, it's a picture that I took. My fingers froze when I took it. It's a love and hate relationship with that photograph. I hate it and I love it. Because I almost lost my fingers taking my gloves off for 10 minutes getting that photograph.
You lost your nails?
Yeah, everything. My thumb is hurting every day. But there's always good things about things like that. I can't wash dishes at home anymore, so I can watch football now because I break them. So no feelings.
But he also said that the ice is sick, which is a phrase that I really find interesting.
Yeah, it was. But I've been there for nearly 40 years, or around 40 years in Greenland, and I'm collecting photographs, and I've seen what's. It's like walking on the pages in a book. You see it melting, you see things changing, And it was in '86 in Tule when an old man said, when I passed his house for 5 days, he always said the same. He was looking up in the air, always said the same sentence. And I asked the teacher in the village to translate for me, and he said, there's something wrong. It shouldn't be like this. The big ice is sick. And then I started really photographing the Arctic with that something is happening. And I want to, there are some of the villages that are gone, and there's a lot of things that have changed, and it will never be done again. And I'm now traveling all 8 Arctic countries to cover, like a journey through all 8 Arctic countries to show the world what's really happening.
But still, when I called you a couple of weeks back, you were not there, you were in Sierra Leone, and then also on the way into a plane.
Yeah, I was just warming up a little bit.
Warming up, because it's the
I
old
want to see the other side. I want to photograph the other side too, because I was supposed to be in Russia, go to Siberia. I couldn't go because of the wars. So I went to Sierra Leone and see where the ocean is breaking down the houses on the coastline. But everything happens for a reason, because I couldn't go to Siberia, so I went to Finland, and there's a village called Cape Hope, and there was one man, last man standing in the village. And I'd been trying to photograph him for a long time, but he was never there, always somewhere, so I missed him. And he had 20 brothers, sisters, there were 2 of them left. He had 4 wives, they're all dead. And he was leaving, and I came there, I talked to that, and I met him, photographed him. And I photographed him looking back. It's a story that I write down for my next book about the old 8 Arctic countries, and he was looking back, and he's with sadness in his eyes and saying, there's no hope in Cape Hope anymore. So he was the last man standing, and the houses are all crumbling down. So it's those moments that happen. I think I can't be that lucky all the time, but it was pure luck. So.
And we can all see the inspirational source of the poster of this year's photo festival. It's your dog there, I guess. It is.
Oh, I'm glad to see that. I should have changed the cover. It's better.
It's better in blue. And Tine, you did not start out as a photographer. No. You started out as something completely else.
I was a graphic designer.
Yeah.
I still do graphic design.
But you have been working with in lots of industries before you went into photography.
Yes. I was actually, my brother was a very successful photographer. And all his friends were really great photographers, so I thought like, I will never reach up to them, so do something else. But by chance I started with photography, and I was totally obsessed. So yeah, I started late.
But this is, I mean, what we're looking at here, the decomposition of the flowers, and where do you end there? Or it's twisted and it's twirled, or what? How do you describe it?
Well, they are actually regular photos, like some of the ones exhibited here. My last exhibition, I actually went totally abstract. And on top of that, I painted physical paints, big prints. And the reason I went abstract was because to me, photography is so exciting. I never feel I have learned it all. And I wanted to do something different than I had done before. So I'm very fond of like experimenting with the medium of photography. And yeah, so this is what I did. But with this series, I'm going a bit back again, but I'm still painting. I'm very fond of colors, as a lot of people will see, but they're actually bleeding from the heat or from whatever.
I've read that you said that you started out of anger.
Yes. The great thing about photography is because I started with documentary photography, and it made me get close to so many people and terrible situations, but all over the world. And it made me very angry how unfair this world is. So yeah, and it made me feel I had to continue.
And I will show a series now, and I want you to tell what we're looking at.
This is a series called Exit Wonderland. It's from the US. I was traveling on a road trip with my daughter, and this is from the desert. And I kept taking photos. I had no plan of making a series, but I was very attracted to those enormous landscapes and the sort of ghost town places that you find with the trashy cars. And when I came, after I came home, I got this email with a news notification from the Washington Post that from the editorial board, where they said there is actually possible that Donald Trump will be elected president. And then I went back to these photos and I thought, like, what can I do? I was terrified, angry, and I experimented I actually took away all the blues in the color, in the photography, and I saw that they suddenly looked like a movie set, that it was all unreal. And it was much closer to the feeling I had when I took the photos than the actual photo was. So it was like, when I saw them like that, I thought, this is how I felt.
That's your feeling.
Yeah.
That's gonna be.
So I gave them titles that were all quotes by Donald Trump.
Do you remember the quote for this last one here?
I think it was this global warming bullshit is far too expensive or something like that.
You can see it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And Erik, you also started out as something completely else. Or at least, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it started as a hobby, this stuff, but I mean, I studied computer engineering at a time when I started doing it a little bit more seriously. And even though I never worked as an engineer, I think I have this engineering approach to photography to try to figure out how to solve a problem. The problem of capturing something that doesn't exist. And this is one of the early works that I did, or early, 2008, I guess.
And this actually was the one that you broke through with, and people started finding you online and seeing what you were doing.
Yeah, it's quite, it's pretty funny because the image kind of got a life on its own, and the idea behind the image was that you should create your own way, where you want to go and what you want to do, and in a way I guess it enabled me to do that by making that image.
And we can see a few of your your landscapes here, and everything is twisted, turned upside down, and I get lots of also Scandinavian vibes with this, to be locked into a church, for instance.
It's called comfort zone, and it's about the idea of what is a comfort zone. That is both a safe place and a place that you feel maybe comfortable in, that you feel safe in, but also it's a prison in a way. And I was thinking, how can I illustrate it the best way possible? So I thought a house is like a good way to capture someone in, but I wanted it to be also visible, the person inside. So that's why I thought like a greenhouse-looking structure would work.
And this is really a kind of Scandinavian vibe too.
Typical red house, yeah. It's called The Architect, and it's about the idea of when you're creating something or when you're into something. So you can see that this man is an architect, and he's creating these impossible worlds and impossible objects, and somehow the world around him is kind of turning into that, what he is inside of his own mind. So it's kind of how the world is colored by yourself. Yeah.
We're talking about nature here, and I know that the Swedish photographers were quite pissed off when you got elected the Nature Photographer of the Year. They didn't like that very much.
No, yeah, that was a big surprise for me as well. It's usually a prize that you give someone who's really authentic and not using Photoshop. So yeah, that was unexpected, and first I didn't really think it was a good idea, but since when they said that this is what we decided, then I thought that it's maybe nature, even though it's not traditional nature photography, it's still nature has always been very important in my work, and yeah, so.
And we were asked here also to say something about where will this end and where are we going with Nordic photography. And I asked all of you to think about that, what is happening now. And Tine and Ragnar, you have given me some examples, and I have to say that I also brought in some Danes there because I think Denmark is quite important in this realm as well. And Ragnar, you chose a couple of photographers, Kristin Ingvarsson with portraits. This is the Norwegian painter Odd Nerdrum, by the way.
Yeah.
And why did you choose Kristin? I think it's on.
It's on?
Yes.
He's a friend of mine, actually, and he's a great portrait photographer. And he does, he's a kind of a shy boat hiding, he doesn't show much, he doesn't say much, you'll never notice it, but he always gets the great moments when he's taking his portrait photographs. So I like how he does it. It's, he's using flash. I never use flash, but he can use it like, you're just amazed how he, the light, like in the next photo. He's a...
And who is this?
This is a writer, a famous writer. He's passed away, and he was catching the moments, showing him, like this character. It's a way I like his pictures, actually.
And you know another here, Paul Stefansson.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He studied in Sweden, and we know everybody. You know, we're so few. I mean, yeah, it's like the trees in Iceland. We have so few trees; they all have names. So it's he's a landscape photographer, and we sometimes travel together. We could never see that we were together because we could take totally different photographs.
Yeah. And here's another landscape.
Yeah.
Where is this? Is this
This is east of Iceland. The weather is always like that. So he goes there quite often, and.
But it does something also that, I mean, the earth is actually cracking on Iceland. The volcanoes are now coming, and you said you really want Katla to blow, which I found very, very frightening.
It's very exciting. I mean, it's when in 2010, when Eyjafjallajökull erupted, which nobody could pronounce in the world. So all flights were shut down. We were flying very close. It was great. And I think there's everybody to come when you have an eruption and come and see it, because
we all like to come when there are eruptions.
It's really great. I mean, even though I don't photograph it much, I did though. I landed from Africa and straight to my plane and flew over it, and because there are like thousands of people taking the same pictures at this particular. But when it's in the middle of the highland, then nobody goes. Then it's fine.
But what you also did was to bring a big volcano stone into the plane while it was so hot that it burned through your jacket. I don't think that was very wise.
Think about that. No, it was, well, we do stupid things all our lives. And it was a new lava, and I took a rock, and we were in a helicopter. We landed, and we took, every one of us, even the pilot of the helicopter, took the rock. And then suddenly we saw it was like so hot, it was almost putting the helicopter on fire, so I put it in my jacket. And when we landed, the jacket was burning.
This is also to tell a little short story about how dangerous it is living as a photographer, but it's, but I mean, Tine, when we spoke about what is happening in Norway, I thought this was a very good opportunity to talk about a project actually. And what is this? The Norwegian Journal of Photography?
It's a mentoring program funded by the government.
No, not the government, but
the Association of Free Word. And they pick a certain amount of photographers, really good ones, and they work together, mentoring each other, doing each their own project over 2 years, which and finishes up as an exhibition and a book. And this has actually got like international
recognition.
Yeah.
Because here are very different photographers, and I asked you to choose a few of those because this Fritt Ord is a foundation. It's based on money from selling stocks from kiosk chain. So those money poured into, and then they found out that they wanted to push money into photography actually. And you have chosen 3 photographers from that that we will show now, who all have been through this mentoring process, and one of them is Helge Skodvin. He lives in Bergen.
Yeah.
And why did you choose Helge Skodvin? This work is from, this work, Volvo.
Yeah.
The Volvo project of Helge.
Yeah, he is, I would say he's the most typical Norwegian contemporary photographer. He's very low-key, and he has such a sense of humor. And
this is one of the Volvos. He actually told once that he was, he also looked into Finnish photographers doing all these portraits of lonely men sitting out in the forest drinking. And then he saw Lars Turbjörk, and he got very inspired by Lars Turbjörk. And he met Anders Petersen, which is another Swede. And this Anders Petersen, he did lots of portraits of prostitutes, of drug addicts, and he lived with them, and he told Helge, we all have to do what is inside us. And Helge thought, I'm not a drug addict, I have never been with a prostitute, but I drive a Volvo. So then he started out photographing all the Volvo 240s in all of Norway. He picked all of them, so these are 2 of them. But he also did things like this, which is preparing for Christmas every year. He has a Christmas calendar, Helge Skodvin style. This is how the Norwegian...
You should actually follow him on Facebook and Instagram, because before Christmas he will turn up with more Santa pictures, and they are really funny.
This is probably a very normal office somewhere in Norway, and these are 2 very normal hairdressers. They are sisters. So this is Helge. But then you have Terje Abestad, quite another kind of photographer.
Yeah.
And he also went through this process here.
Yeah.
And
it's called Slash and Burn. His name is Terje Abestad. I think he won the Hasselblad something award for this series. What I like about him is that he's kind of surreal. He is stretching the boundaries. So this is like not total documentary work.
This is called the Slash and Burn, but it is based on the Finns of the forest Finns. There is a place in Norway called Finnskogen, which is the Finn of forest Finns, and they also use this burnt tactic. So this is what he is playing with here, and it's amazing work. Terje Abestad and Linda Bonane Engelbert. Yeah.
I am not sure. I think this is a series from
the Binary.
Yeah, Binaries. But she has been. I'm also. I think she's very good at stretching the boundaries. She did a project after her mom died, where she staged herself as her mom, which really impressed me. But I think she's doing documentary film now. So I suppose when it comes to going out of the frames for documentary photography, I think we all sometimes we want to tell stories. and it's just not enough what we see in the frame. So, like my brother who started doing movies, or Linda is now making documentary films.
Yeah, so she is kind of blurring. She's going from documentary just as you did, and into the art, and then back again. And she uses. She is Algerian Norwegian, and I have to admit, since I'm the host, I can do whatever I want to. And I just wanted to bring in another name here, just as a fourth Norwegian. She's Norwegian, Nigerian Norwegian. She was Frida Ompabo. She was the talk on the town in Fries 2 years ago, but she was also in Venice. And she said, and I think that is interesting in this reel, because she said, I wanted to have photos that resembled myself. And she was picked up by Arthur Jaffo, who is a famous filmmaker. He does things for Beyoncé and Jay-Z, and he saw her Insta profile, and that started it. So she is using, also like Linda does, her own identity, and twists and turns, make it into collages, and also into installations like this. So that is, I thought it was important to bring in that this is also happening in the Nordics. It's also showing that we get more diverse than we used to be.
And remember to say, Linda is also a member of 7 agency.
And Hilde is institute.
Yeah, like me.
Like you.
Yeah.
I asked you, Erik, about the Swedes, and since you live in Prague now, you don't follow the Swedish scene so much, but what
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No, but I guess it's also like my inspiration comes a bit from very mixed places, and I don't see, I cannot pinpoint specific Swedish photographers that I can say are like, I mean, on the cutting edge kind of, or like the next kind of thing. So it's hard for me to pick actually.
But you sent me in some kind of directions.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people I follow on Instagram and social media whose work I like. So yeah, there's of course some as well. I don't know what you included, or if it's.
Because I called a Dane.
Oh, okay.
Thomas Jorda Prize. Because I thought, I mean, we all know that Danish photographers have been very there on the stage of World Press Photo and everywhere else you can find a Danish photographer. Even as an Icelandic person who were very under the Danes as the Norwegians were, we have to accept that, don't we? We left, you left, and we left. Yeah. But I asked Thomas, because I think when we talk about Nordic photography, it's also important to show a few. And I also talked with Cyril, who is here now, and checked with him the list that I got from Thomas. And Thomas has been very important for bringing the Scandinavian photo editors together many times. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Nonna Toft. She works not very commercially, according to Søren. I think all the names I'm showing here have been in Aarhus, in his school. And she is also twisting on the identity issue. And I'm not sure if you agree with me, that more and more photo gets more and more intimate. And Nonna Toft is one of them. Another one, Tobias Nicolai, is a name that Søren also said we should watch out for, if you take notes now, who is not so much on his own stories. He takes lots of assignments, but he does portraits where he twists and uses all other kind of means to make photos his style. and has a more raw expression, also according to Søren, in what he's doing. He lives in Aarhus. The other ones live, I think, in Copenhagen. Marie Hall. She is a photographer who manages to live off what she's doing, but she also works back and forth from reportage to the commercial work and then back again. Perhaps you have seen this portrait series of Bonnie, who was a prostitute. That won a prize in World Press Photo. Do you recognize any of these? Have you heard the names that I mentioned now?
I have, yes.
And do you think there's anything Danish here?
Definitely.
In what way?
It's difficult to say, but there is a certain style I recognize with other Danish photographers as well. But I love it. I think it's great.
Erik?
Yeah, I think I recognized some of the photos, but I didn't know the name of the photographer. But yeah, I agree also with the Danishness of it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I had, but I'm not sure if that is here now, but Thomas had some notions about where he thinks that Scandinavian photography will move. Can I ask you guys to come up? What do you think, Ragnar?
About it, well, where it's going?
From what we have seen here now, for instance.
Well, I think it's going in all directions, depending on what you're doing. To talk for myself, like I said, I'm like a little boat in the mist. I come out, and I honk, and I make an exhibition in the book, and then I go back. And I'm like Robinson Crusoe, living on an island. Nobody knows who I am, actually, in the Scandinavian world of photography, more or less. Or very little, I think, and a little about the estimate. But to me, I want to document life that is changing. It's important to show it, because it is changing, and it will never be done again. We never know when a photograph becomes a legendary photograph, like a painting. It has happened. There are many. I can mention a few if you like Le Matin, Tomoko in the Bath, and many great photographs that will live forever. And I think it's a quest. I never felt I had taken it before. I'm trying to, and it takes a lifetime to do that. And it's just, I want to show the world what's happening. That's my thing to do. And give people in those countries a voice. When you photograph people like that, like in Greenland and Siberia, I always write their names and talk with them. And so it's not just a photograph without a name. It adds something to the picture. And I think it's important because a lot of people in the world don't know what's happening. That's documentary work. And painters in the 1500s, 1600s, they were documentary painters. It's the same.
Tine?
Well, I think, with a world like, I agree with you. And the way you work, you are very, you have been funding this yourself, I know. Yeah. Which is, this is hard for many photographers to fund these sort of things. Photography takes time. You can't just like jump in for 5 minutes and do a great photo. So I think it's important that it's recognized and that the media will give photography a chance. And I also think photography has a challenge that we are flooded by photos every day on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. And as a photographer, you want to do something different. At least if you want to get paid for it.
Something that matters.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yes, it's really important. But yeah.
when you see the, like here, Gacilly, the outdoor photographs and what they're doing, it's so great for photographers and photography, because it's fighting for its life in a way, in the media world and all that. So it's very good.
Yeah, I think you already said kind of pretty much those things that I thought about too. I mean, authenticity and realness, I think, is something that we will see more everywhere as a reaction to the world we live in now digitally. But also like how climate change is affecting the world, especially. I mean, we really see that difference very clearly in the north, like the work you are doing also. So I think that's something we will keep seeing and keep documenting as well.
And that's the reason why we wanted to end up with a man in the bath in Baden. I thought that was a very, very nice ending to the conversation about Nordic photography. Thank you so much, Erik and Tine and Ragnar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jetzt, liebe Freunde, now my dear friends, we coming to a very, very, very personal part of this evening, because we are remembering not only a friend but a husband. And Thomas Jorda was one of the most driving journalist when it came to culture in Lower Austria and beyond. He was, in a natural way, part of the creation of this festival. It was just normal for him to join it. Unfortunately, he's not with us. And I would like to bring to your attention a few people. Beate Jorda, Daniel Lohninger, on the stage. To talk about what we have in mind to remember Thomas. Maybe Beate, you start out.
To remember my husband, I should like to say that he was one of the most enthusiastic people that I've ever met. And he was a journalist from the bottom of his heart to the very last moment. And he could not imagine himself, for example, to be retired. And as far as the festival is concerned, I can remember it was an evening when we had a wonderful dinner together with you and your wife, and you just came from Gacilly for the first time, I think, and you told us about the project there and how much you liked it. And he was enthusiastic about it from the very first moment. He supported it, and he really enjoyed it, what was going on here. And I think he would like to be with us.
I know that Thomas is with us. He will be sitting up there somewhere and he's having a ball this evening. And in a more metaphoric way, he's still here because Beate agreed to follow him in his position as a member of the NGO, orchestrating this festival. And I think this is a sign for continuation, for respect, for dignity, and for what this man achieved in his life and what he did to this city. In this respect, I would like to introduce to you the editor-in-chief of Niederösterreichische Nachrichten, Mr. Daniel Lohninger, a good friend of Thomas. And we had the sad opportunity to meet at the funeral. And upon leaving the funeral on a very beautiful sunny morning, we came together and said, let's do something. And please tell the audience what it is about.
Ja, danke. Ich werde in Deutsch antworten und maybe you could translate a little bit. Ja, das Gespräch damals war wirklich auch für mich ein sehr einprägsames. Thomas Jorda, es ist auch schon angesprochen worden, war so etwas wie eine Institution in Niederösterreich, ich glaube auch darüber hinaus und für uns in der Redaktion ohnehin. Er war ein scharfsinniger Kritiker, er hat ein irrsinniges Wissen auch gehabt, also das Wissen haben wir wahrscheinlich zusammen nicht in der Fülle gehabt wie Thomas Jorda. Und er war jemand, und ich glaube, das ist auch das Wichtige, warum wir diesen Preis, also der Preis auch für die Niederösterreichischen Nachrichten so wichtig nehmen, dass er jemand war, der nicht nur Kunst und Kultur journalistisch betrachtet hat, sondern immer auch den Gedanken hatte, zu fördern, natürlich auch zu fordern und also mehr gesehen hat als nur das Journalistische. Und das ist, glaube ich, der Nachlass von Thomas Jorda, der auch für uns in unserer täglichen Arbeit so wichtig ist. Und deshalb haben wir ihm gesagt, wir übergeben gern diesen Preis, wir rufen ihn ins Leben, wir haben ihn vorher ja zum ersten Mal vergeben und wir wollen damit auch den Geist von Thomas Jorda in dem Sinne und sein Wirken weiterführen und wirklich bewusst auch jemanden fördern. Und da entstand dann im Gespräch zwischen uns die Idee, dass wir gesagt haben, ihm waren immer junge Künstlerinnen, Schriftsteller ein großes Anliegen und da haben wir gesagt, jedes Jahr eine junge niederösterreichische Schriftstellerin, die wir vor dem Forum bieten, der wir die Gelegenheit geben, auch hier als Artist in Residenz zu arbeiten. Und das freut mich heute, dass wir das zum zweiten Mal übergeben werden.
As a matter of fact, we have two award winners here tonight. Katharina Haderer did win 2021, and of course she did receive the benefits of the award already, but what she did not receive yet is the trophy, because it was on very short notice created, and we didn't have the time to find the right artist to create the right object, the right trophy, and so I would like to ask Katharina to join us up here on the stage to receive finally the trophy for Thomas Jorda Award 2021. That's the man, and that's the trophy, and that's the winner. A beautiful young talent. So, who's announcing the winner of 2022?
22 is Raffaela Edelbauer. Please come to the stage.
Herzliche Gratulation. The beauty now I have to do a little complaint because it's about writers and we are photographers. I have received myself quite many awards in photography, mostly without money, but a big trophy. In this case, we created it right. And here is not only a beautiful trophy to remember and to inspire a young talent, but there's also a check, and there's an artist in residence, which with a big obligation to write about this festival. So next year, at this time, or a given moment, we agree upon you will be welcome in Baden to stay with us for a week as artist in residence and think about what we kind of do here. So maybe you get some ideas tonight, but maybe you have completely other ones. So welcome to the festival in this sense, and congratulations to the Thomas Jorda Award 2022. Thank you.
I mean, what can I say except thank you very much for this trophy, and I gladly agree to do that next year and to come and visit you. Yeah, I feel like an imposer here, to be honest, because it feels like such a, I don't know, change of topic, but yeah. Certainly. So, yeah, thank you very much for letting me glimpse into this world, and
Vielleicht auch kurz noch die Begründung. Die Begründung der Jury. Geht's? Hallo? Man hört's. Vielleicht auch kurz noch die Begründung der Jury, der ja im Prinzip auch unsere Kulturredaktion, die Kulturredakteurin Michaela Fleck, das ja gemeinsam auch mit Frau Jorda entschieden hat, und die haben gesagt, sie sind eine der spannendsten und interessantesten Schriftstellerinnen, nicht nur in Österreich und im deutschsprachigen Raum, sondern auch weltweit, wenn man so will, und das ist ein großes Kompliment. Also gratuliere noch einmal und freue mich schon auf ein Wiedersehen im nächsten Jahr.
Just take Thomas with I think. Congratulations and enjoy the evening. Thank you very much. And now, the group photographs. Sorry, of course. But after this, we head for a break. Dankeschön, thank you, and thank you all. We make a break for 10 minutes, go to the fresh air, use the toilet, but come back please in 10 minutes. Thank you. Danke. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. On. I got it. Thank you, Lois. That was probably the shortest moment on stage for you in a long time. And I love you too, even though we start to talk about war. Ich liebe dich. I was the director of World Press Photo, and that is about the stories that matter. And I don't. I've seen a lot of war photography in the 6 years that I was able to be part of it. I sat in most of the judging, and I'm not a great fan of war photography, but I do see how important it is. And I also had the privilege to meet many photographers that are what they call war photographers. I think I would prefer to talk about conflict photography, to be honest. That goes beyond war. And I think also that war photography has changed. But we're still going to do it, and I think that we will have an interesting part of this evening. We will start with a short video message of Goran Tomašević, the chief photographer for Reuters 2002-2022 from Serbia. We will also look at a slideshow of his work, and this is a sort of prequel, I would say, to a book that is coming out. The book will be presented in Visa pour l'Image one of the wonderful exhibitions, festivals on photojournalism in the world. And after that, I will have a very nice conversation with Laetitia Vançon. And then we will talk with Dominik Mahr, Gilles Steinmann, Ivo Mijnssen, and we will talk about how does work that is currently made in Ukraine end up in the Neue Zürcher Zeitung. But let's start first with Goran Tomašević. A video message will come up now, and after that we will have I think, a 5-minute slideshow of his work.
Dear friends and colleagues, I'm very sorry that I'm not with you today. I'm on assignment in Congo. Sadly, war is starting between N23 rebels and government soldiers. I'm here to cover that story and to do my duty. I hope you will accept my apology because I'm not able to join the festival and see friends who I deeply respect. Our profession asks that we are always in a place where it's the best to have good pictures. Sadly, usually there are wars and events where there is a lot of unhappiness and blood and danger. I cover many wars. First war in former Yugoslavia, where I lost friends and people I know. And in some way that shape my relations with the war. Photos cannot lie. That was always a rule. That camera and photos showing the truth and sending us a strong message. My motive of covering wars is not adventurism or adrenaline rush or because I like smell of gunpowder. All these tragedies I'm feeling like my own. I'm covering the war to show to the world all these bad things with one aim. To never happen again. My pictures and pictures of my colleagues, I hope they'll stop these tragedies. And thanks very much. I feel really sorry that I could not attend, and really good luck with the festival. My regards. Greetings from Congo.
When I was director of the World Press Photo, Goran was in our jury. So let me tell you a little anecdote about him. And he was one of the last photographers, jury members to arrive. And of course he came from a place in the world where lots of the work that we've seen took place. And I said, let me pick him up. And I drove to the airport and I waited there. And this big man came out of the gate with a very big suitcase and a plastic cast around his leg. So I thought, okay, he has an injury. So I said, can I take your suitcase? No. I never give away my suitcase. So that was like first, like, okay, this man has been in many places in the world. And then I saw this cast was a little bit loose. And so I thought, let's not just talk about his injury. But later on we asked, of course, what Goran was this? He said, yeah, I was injured. I had shrapnel in my leg. Ah, okay. But when did this happen? And he said, oh, many months ago. And it turned out that he had seen a doctor finally with his leg, and he came to the doctor, and it was already 3 months after that the shrapnel had his... and he told the doctor was very furious. But I think that was the commitment that I sensed in Goran Tomašević, that no matter what, he keeps going, and surgery can wait. And it was a joy to see him judge, and he was very outspoken. But I think it's something that is very, very connected to Goran Tomašević, this incredible dedication. And if you look at the images, I don't think that we can imagine the things he has seen. And it's going to be interesting to see how it will share in a book. And I think that will come out soon. Lois, thanks for making a book with him. It will be well received, I think, by Goran. So I also thought this is a good way to catch you a little bit after watching this, because now we will move on to, of course, what is on the screen. Laetitia Vançon, would you please come to the stage and join me for this conversation? And if you could change the screen to the PowerPoint that we have prepared. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We came up with this idea, I think, well, you probably won't guess who called me last night and said, I have an idea. Of course, it was Lois. And then we started talking, and he said, you have to see this. And then I came into the hotel bar and I saw this presentation of the work that you had just published with the New York Times.
Exactly. We just published yesterday a big piece on Odessa, where I've been actually in June with reporter Roger Cohen for three weeks. Yeah.
And then I said, let's do an interview. And I read somewhere in your own words that you are a very shy person. But yeah, here we are on stage, so there's no reason for shyness. We just have to do it. And I think we've prepared well. We have some interesting work there. But first of all, of course, it's interesting to know who you are. And you didn't start as a photographer. You turned photographer much later in your life, because at first you were a chemical engineer. And when I thought about that, I think about chemistry and everything. But it was actually perfume business that you worked in.
Exactly, yeah. So I studied chemistry. I became an engineer, and then I worked for 7 years in a company who process perfumes and fragrances. Yeah, that was the beginning of the first part of my life, until I was basically around 30. Photography was absolutely not a part of my world at this time.
Yeah, keep the microphone a little bit closer.
Okay.
But you weren't, yeah. What's your favorite perfume?
Actually, I don't wear perfumes.
If you work, yeah, just as I don't take photographs while I work in photography so many times. It's I had to ask. Then you were not satisfied with that life, and you told me that you wanted to change. Where did you end up in photography?
It's a kind of a long journey, but I try to make it short for everybody. It's just, I think I've been conditioned, like, I come from a family really classical. My father was military, my mom stayed at home and raised the kids. And I have been told, like, do high study, like that you will be more independent, you will get a good job. And it took me a while to just like realize, and also I had a tragic event in my life just who could suddenly wake me up and not only realize that I was unhappy, but I was just not fitting to the place I was. I had no idea where I wanted to go. I just realized this is not the choice I would have made if I would have had this reflection earlier on. And I decided to make a pause because I think I just needed to recentrate. So I just went traveling. And during the traveling, I started photography, but it was really just a touristic tool at this time. I call it tool. And when I came back to Europe, I had still no idea, but I had a urge on finding some answer about myself. And photography was the most obvious things I started to do to get this answer. And it was my therapy. It was really, on the beginning, really self-centered. To be able to question through other life, my life, and it was a search of my own identity, and also where do I belong and what makes me belonging to somewhere. And so I just use this. It's a journey with photography where first it comes from a need to answer personal question, and when I finally be able to settle with myself and be satisfied, I could open and use a photography to document the life of others.
Is there still one or two, maybe three photos from this time that you started as what you call a tourist or an amateur that you still look back to? Do you remember? Or do you look at them now and it's like, what was I thinking?
No, I don't look at them, but I have one in mind in Laos, yes, it was a daily scene of the family. I always loved to use the camera actually to come closer to people because, as you say, I'm kind of really shy, even if maybe it's not visible, and therefore the camera was also an entry to an excuse somehow to come closer and to interact, and so I have these pictures in mind, but I don't really look back at these pictures now.
And there was a moment that you thought, I need to be a professional photographer. You moved into that, but how do you make this step from doing that? Did you have a formal photo education? Did you just start?
In the beginning, no. I was using this media, and I realized I can do photos, but I was not able to do visual storytelling. And I had not, it's not like I was starving for, I want to do it as a professional. And I didn't want to rush because I learned in my life that I better take time to make decisions, and I didn't want to be also categorized too quickly if I start to show a portfolio not ready. So I took time and I create slowly like personal stories, and after a while I searched for a school with, actually Søren is in the Danish photojournalism school.
It's always Søren Pastor.
Søren is everywhere. And I really love the concept of the school and the openness. When I went to visit actually the diploma ceremony of the school, and then I decided to apply and get taken. And that's the only education I get, like 6 months. It was a 6 months training, and that helps me to understand how visually I can tell a story.
Okay, and then comes a very unbelievable part, because that was 2014, and then as of 2015 you work for the New York Times.
Yeah, so previously I had done some workshop, and during the workshop once I met the editor of the New York Times, and it was 2 years, it was before I started school actually, and she was looking at the work and she said, it's nice pictures but it's too young, and she meant by too young the fact that I was not able to make a sequences. By a sequence is telling a story, sorry. And yeah, after I finished the school, I took time to do another project, and then with a school project and the Hebrides Island project, like at the end of the day, which has been exhibited at the Gacilly and here in Baden then, I went back to her and showed the work, and she said, no, I think you're ready, let's start. And we started with local story. I'm based in Germany, so it was mainly story in Germany, assignment in Germany. And then the relationship and the trust developed, and we make bigger and bigger story.
And then this wonderful story. I mean, there was a story that I looked at yesterday, multiple pictures. I mean, today I looked at much more of the photos, and there's even much more into it. So it must be a bit joy for a photo editor to go through that work.
Thank
I mean,
you.
this is a story with how many photos are in the publication online with the New York Times?
The last one?
Yeah.
This is a record. It's 44 pictures, which is quite massive.
Which is very rare these days. Yeah, there you go. I think you should deserve an applause. And still the editor said, I wish we could have put 66 in or something like that. Or was it? No, they had a hard time, I guess, editing it back.
Actually, I had trouble with the Android format because it was too heavy to load. So I think we reached the limit.
This part of the evening is about war photography, and I said I'm not so sure if I like war photography. But you don't consider yourself a war photographer. You've been to Ukraine, but you're not a war photographer.
No, I don't consider myself a war photographer.
No. How would you describe yourself?
I'm a photographer, but I don't know how I can categorize. I'm a photojournalist at the moment. Is really what I am, because I'm working 90% for the New York Times, actually. So it's photojournalism, what I'm doing. Yeah.
But you also have beautiful prints that you sell, I saw on your website. I had to show this because...
Please buy.
Yeah. It's fine art. Well made with them.
These pictures and the one which will follow are both pictures taken on assignment, actually. Yeah.
Is it important, print sales? There's lots of talk about photographers. I want to diversify my income. I mean, you just disclosed that 90% is from the New York Times. But do you sell prints?
Yes, I do. Not in a regular basis, but it pops maybe between 5 and 10 times a year. Yeah.
Okay.
And depends. Sometimes often it's an assignment who comes, and then the people start to Google my name, and then they find the website, and then they ask for photos, or yeah.
Is it strange to sometimes do people ask for photos where you feel like, why would you want to have that on the wall?
No, I don't question this. I'm often coming with like, how did they come to see it? But then their choices are personal. I keep it to them. If they want to share it with me, I'm glad, but I don't ask,
I love this photo. We looked at it this afternoon. I asked you, do you have any favorites? But we went through a lot of work, and you talked about how you're shy, but you also talked. I asked you, how do you describe your photos? The words intimacy. I'm a kind person. I want to do tribute to the people that I see. Is this the reason why you can come up close to people like this? I mean, it feels like they almost took a pose for you in this very dark and gloomy surrounding.
So that's first. I think I like it very much because it's my tones and it's my light. It's the kind of light I really like. This is something you will often see in the work. And then I like the fact that how it happens. It was an assignment on before Brexit. We were documenting the United Kingdom and how the different landers, the different section of UK was preparing or reacting to this. And this was taken in Ireland, in Belfast. And I wanted to go to the area where there was this huge mural representing already the northern and southern conflict of Ireland. I didn't expect to see someone, but I was hoping to wait enough to see something happening. And then these three kids, just like I was driving and I saw these three kids running out of their house. It's kind of a rough quarter, actually. And they were screaming and angry, running, and I just pulled the car and just parked badly, whatever, but I just went on the corner. I was locating this corner, I saw it, and I just was hoping they will do a loop and maybe come there. And I wait there, and they appear. And I was just like in the middle, and they just come towards me, and I shout to them, stop. And they stop, and they were like, just for a second, freeze, like that. I lost the little one with his tilt head, questioning somehow. And I like it because they have this Star Wars mask. We talk about the conflict. And on this wall is about the conflict, but it's also this new generation. It's not their fault, but they will still carry the stigma of it, and maybe with the tension of Brexit. So it's like all these layers kind of subtly adding, which I like, and the aesthetic of it, of course, yeah.
Go see the series on the website. We will go to Ukraine, or you went to Ukraine. Here is the portrait in the museum. There's also a wonderful portrait of an artist in it. I mean, this is where you explored the city of Odessa.
Yeah, so the assignment is a dispatch on Odessa. In June, Odessa is still actually coming back to life. It's not about frontline and other pictures we've seen before. Like, you won't see any so hard photos, I will say. Yeah. And Catherine the Great, the Empress Catherine the Great, is actually had founded, I mean, Odessa was before that a Greek settlement long time ago, but then between Ottoman and Russian Empire, the Russian founded Odessa. And the museum, when the war started, the art museum emptied the entire collection of art there and protected. But they let the Empress, the Russian Empress, in the location. Also for question of weight, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But it says on the spirit of the Odessan, it's a sly, braver sign on we don't care, and this is what you can still get out of us if Odessa will have been taken. Invaded, sorry.
It's not the front line, but it's closer, because you did bump into people that were deeply affected by war. This photo that I have here, this is clearly somebody that has been affected. So you go into it, you explore, but you also run into people that had the front line come up to their doorstep.
So that happened in Mykolaiv. When we were in Odessa, 3 days after actually a shelling on civilian buildings happened, and there was like exactly these two victims we could interviewed. The first woman was really lucky to be alive, actually, because the shelling, the bomb hit her building, exactly the wall where she was standing, and it's because she opened the fridge at this moment, at 6:47, all the shrapnel didn't get into her, but into the door of the fridge. And that's why she was coming back, actually, when we met her, and trying to clean her apartment was completely destroyed. And this young boy, 21 years old, was having lung injury from the deflagration of,
cruise missile.
And he was he's from Odessa, and he was coming to visit a friend to provide supplies for help. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what does that do to you when you walk around, you see this, and how close does that war come to you? I mean, you're a journalist, you're a storyteller. These are the stories that you encounter. Is it? How does that emotionally affect you? being there?
It goes by waves, I think. In Odessa, you are in a kind of normality, so I felt quite normal. It felt almost strange because you are this split in between these two towns, just 65 miles away of each other, like 120 kilometers. So I think you're focused on how. My answer to this is more like that I am, when I'm shooting more delicate scenes like that, I am behind a camera and I am trying to make visuals which will keep the dignity of the person, but and sometimes be powerful and aesthetic, because I have a certain aesthetic I'm demanding on that, because for the viewer, just for grabbing the attention, that the person can just stop and look because of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but...
Yeah. You get up close, this is young people not doing work, but they're working on body armor plates, right? So the economy has kind of collapsed on a lot of places, and therefore they have lost their job, and they help to the effort of the war without being involved into the army, but on basically occupying a former street clothes shop and making body armor for the front line. Yeah. You feel the presence of control, police stopping cars, I think, here, trying to find out if it's...
I think it was still... Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
This is a patrol, so they keep on doing patrol, and it's also supported by civilians, so there is a huge... there is the police, but the police are not in enough numbers to be able to control all the areas, and therefore civilians who have weapons, so they are a group of hunters, come to support the policemen. And on the beginning of the war, especially in Odessa, there was a huge paranoia almost and fears of spies or pro-Russian, because the city is also really pro-Russian, was really pro-Russian. And therefore the control was really hard. Now things get milder, I would say, yeah. But they keep on having the curfew and the control. I like these pictures. I took these pictures because this is saying a lot with almost nothing on it. It's an empty sea. It's a sea. It's a harbor. Odessa is an harbor. It's a sea. It's a harbor city, and therefore it's also a transport hub, an open to the world. And usually this sea is full of either container boats and everything, and there's just nothing anymore. And
nobody on the beach, nobody in the sea, no ships.
No, exactly.
Yeah. But people always photograph each other, right? This one. I thought it was interesting that in that everything is empty, but then and we can't swim in the sea, so we'll find another place to. I mean, this is a part of what you said. Life goes on. People try to. There was sort of a normalcy in the city. Life continues, even though war is close by.
Yeah, and the people wants to live like get back as soon as possible their normal life, and I think is also how they cope for not falling into a hole of depression. These pictures to me is really special. Also, why I decided to do it could be really controversial because it shows a side of Ukraine also. Not supporting, the war, like, and it was so shocking when I went up when I saw there was this infinity pool on the top. I thought like I have to go to see. I was expecting there will be nobody, and then I see this party. People are just on a swimming pool. You can't take pictures of the harbor of Odessa because it's entire control by the army. But from there, if I go in a pool, I can. Mm-hmm. It's a bit absurd.
You spoke about the very large. There's still a large Jewish population also in Odessa. This was where there's more photos in this series. But why did you pick this one? Why did you feel that this one was important?
Because the Jew community was who was? Yeah, for long, like, it's part of also who built Odessa. They had a huge impact on the economy of Odessa. And over history with the wars, they have been split, like, so, how you say when it's split into pieces, they always had to flee, and this community now, due to the war, had the half of the community flee actually to Berlin in Germany. And therefore the kids who remain was having a Zoom conference, and I found it again like kind of making these layers between history, what happened and what happened again, and talking about this Jew community in that sense, on making the link between the past and the now. Yeah, that's how I decided to go there, to do that.
People have fun even though they have to wear a uniform. Also this, what struck me is that you've spent there 3 weeks, which is amazing. Lots of photographers would love to go there. Very often you hear photographers have to go in and out and do it quickly. You spent 3 weeks and you explored so many angles of the city. There's so much depth into what you show. I found that really incredible. At the same time, you kind of had this beautiful mix of daily life commences, but also the sandbags are there, of course, for a reason. Do you feel that? Do you feel almost like that humankind there is just wants to live and that wants to continue their life? If we don't live our lives, we lose out, or we lose from the Russians. Is it that feeling in city?
Yeah, definitely. That's those kids, for example, usually they have a huge party for their diploma at the end of the school, for receiving their diploma. And because of the risk of shelling when there is a too big number of people, that has been forbidden. And they decided to create a performance, an art performance, so dancing on different places around Odessa city, but also Odessa region. And to make a video that they could share on social media to bring awareness on what they have lost, and that their freedom and their identity is never giving up. So that's, I think the people, of course, they just, if this war have definitely united Ukraine as it was never before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will talk a little bit later with the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, with Dominik Mahr, with Gilles, about how that ends up. You have made these photos. This goes to New York, to the New York Times. A writer writes a beautiful piece. Can you say a little bit how that works? I mean, is it for you to hand over the photos and then see what comes out of this publication, or do you still play a role when the choices are made?
No, I don't play a role. So the picture, first Roger, he came without any prejudice. He wanted really to have his report done as he will go, and the meeting the people he will encounter. And therefore, as a photographer, I was having not really a proper direction on how to cover this story. So my method, to come back on. The method was like to look at all these different kind of sector on Odessa, and looking at the economy, the culture, the politics, it's like making like a puzzle and then going in every direction. That's why also you see also much of this visual, because I really actually shoot in every direction to try to make a 360 in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then the pictures are edited and sent, and we have a discussion with the editors in case they need to find quickly who is who in terms of protagonist, but they make the edits them on their own, and and then it's a surprise.
It feels like the chemical engineering method is still there, precisely identifying what you need. Wonderful, you're living a life now that partly is a choice, partly has been coming to you. working for the New York Times, doing the work you like. Is there any big dream that you still have? Final question.
Wow. Just keep being happy. I think a dream, I don't know, if I don't even, for example, I sleep, I don't remember my dream, so it's hard to say awake what is my big dream. Just to have a life where I feel fulfilled, yeah, and happy. As long as that goes, I'm good.
Good. Good luck and
Thank you.
happy dreams, even though you don't dream at night. Laetitia, Vançon, merci bien.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to call to the stage Dominik Mahr, Gilles Steinmann, Ivo Mijnssen. If you would come over here and take your seats. Dominik Mahr is the Neue Zürcher Zeitung staff photographer and member of MAPS. You're from Switzerland. Gilles Steinmann, director of photography, also from Switzerland. He speaks Dutch. I like that. And Ivo Mijnssen, correspondent based in Vienna, responsible for Ukraine, Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, also from Switzerland.
Does not speak Dutch.
Does not speak Dutch. Yeah, Dutch is a difficult language. Yeah, your name is slightly Dutch. Is there a Dutch background?
There is, yeah, but unfortunately too long ago, and my dad never taught it to me, so.
I'm going to get on the screen the slideshow that we prepared. Dominik, you're staff photographer of the Neue Zürcher Zeitung. If you, one thing at a time, I'm a man. There's an edge in the top, let me do this again. Better. Staff photographer. What does that mean? Is it the same as Laetitia, that you work for 90% for the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, or do you have anything else that you do yourself?
This is kind of a new relationship in this forum. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for sticking with us for the Lange Nacht Fotografie. Really, that's amazing. Thank you all for your support. Yeah, this is a bit of a new relationship, working so closely with a media house, especially with NZZ. I had done assignments as a freelance photographer, much of like with other clients for the NZZ, but we've now created a stronger bond by being staff for the paper, not only to be a photographer for them, but also working behind the scenes in the picture desk or producing, coming up with ideas, and really looking at storytelling as well, of how to push storytelling, not just in print, but the idea of online storytelling. So it's an extreme privilege to be at the source, rather than just producing work and pictures and sending them on, to be involved from the process, from the beginning. So that's a bit where we are right now.
Yeah. Photographer turning also into a why is that? Is that a deliberate choice that you make?
Yeah, I think I wanted to kind of get more connected to photography in a way by bypassing my own photography. I think I hit a wall a bit, and I needed a rebirth in a way. I tend to find it hard when I don't learn something new, so it was time to kind of go back to school and learn something new by being at the picture desk and being influenced by all the work that was coming in, and rethinking how those pictures can be used to tell a story. So it was really a new way of refreshing my mind and starting new a bit. So those are always good moments, I think, and they gave me an energy rebirth that I cannot explain. Like, I'm much stronger than I was before going in.
Yeah, Ivo, before we we'll take a look at some of the pictures and then see how they end up, Ivo. You have been working undoubtedly with more photographers in the past. am I right? Do you see that this new role of the photographer being very actively part of making the story together and to also be very knowledgeable about it, is that a good step forward?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I have worked with a lot of photographers, but actually not as many as you would think, because I think NZZ traditionally, this was something that was somewhat underdeveloped. This has really changed very drastically with the Ukraine war. And as far as I understood, Gilles, too, Dominik and my trip in March to Ukraine was also sort of an experiment in this kind of a closer cooperation, because often as a correspondent, you take your trips, you might have a photographer for 1 day or 2 days, they sort of take some pictures of your protagonists, take some pictures of some scenes, but there's still sort of a parallel work. And I think what was really unique working with Dominik was that we really, I think, at least from my point of view, I went into this thinking, okay, there's this guy now and we are actually working together on stories, and it actually required a different way of working. And it felt like a lot more of a cooperation rather than working in parallel, and I thought it was really worthwhile, and it was a really good way of also sort of broadening the way I think about stories and how I work and how I talk to protagonists and how we sort of assess scenes and approach people. So it was a really, really rewarding experience.
The same applies for you. You did not go to the front line. Right.
No, I don't see myself as a war correspondent. I'm a historian. I'm an Eastern European historian. So before I went to NZZ, I actually wrote my dissertation on Soviet history and war memorials, and the war, which turns out to now be an important aspect of this war as well. Sort of this obsession with World War II and this insecurity. And I do think, especially with Ukraine, because this war is so much closer than where we usually see wars, right? It's so much more immediate. And I actually think it's extremely important to, what you were saying, I think I relate a lot to this idea of conflict reporting as well, where you do have the stories of the war, and the war is obviously present everywhere. Like Laetitia said before, you move in these cities where there's this normalcy and the war at the same time. But it's still really important to make sure our readers understand what other things are going on in this country, how they relate to the war, of course, but that this is not just some kind of an object and a country that is sort of objectified as this like place at war, but you have people, you have culture, you have people surviving, people being activists, especially in Ukraine. So there's so many stories, societal, historical, political, all kinds of aspects, and I think it's an important responsibility to cover that.
Yeah. Gilles, you are director of photography, and this is my son calling. He always calls at the moment that you can't answer it.
I know that.
Yeah, that happens in life, right?
That's why we love them.
Yeah, we love them, but it's always this. Gilles, you're director of photography, and news is sometimes the enemy of journalism, I said when we talked a little bit. News is, it's all over the place, and they want to show all the things happening directly, and at the same time, we tend to put more value on journalism like this. How do you see that? What is your how do you relate to this news and journalism, and what is your preference?
Well, I think news happens, so you have to react, and the most important thing is that we learned the several past years is you have to react fast, but this is not in conflict with quality. We are trying to deliver to our subscribers. So we explored several new ways to be fast, but say this is the news, but also admit certain things we don't know yet, and that we are trying to figure out the answers and explain a lot of things, and then you go on with analysis, and you go on with pictures, and then you go on and tell stories, and then times go by, you make a plan, and then you talk to the correspondents, the photographers, and then you go and have a look for yourself.
Do you see a role? Is your role also being in touch with the part that writes in the magazine or in the newspaper? Is this the great marrying up of text and image, or are you called in? We have this story. This is the storyline, and we need some images with it. How does that work these days? Making a story in a newspaper.
This is a thing I talk a lot with my team. Is use the right tools at the right moment. So photography, to me, which is a big passion, of course, is a really powerful tool we can use and tell things you can't in text. And this is the same for graphics, or this is the same with video. So what we do is, of course, we have the text, which explains a lot of things, and then we try to explain this narrative, and then maybe the photography goes in forefront, and then you have a text that explains the photography, or the other way around. Mm. So that's also the really interesting part in the online storytelling.
Yeah. Dominique, do you feel taken more seriously as a photographer now that you move a little bit to other parts of it? Is that changing?
I think I always tried to feel relevant in the stories I was doing and communicate with the picture desk or with the journalists I was working with, that we both need space to take our time to work, not to be left sort of to the last minute, because I do think it's really important to spend time with people and not be rushed in that moment, because there's always this fine line of finding a relationship with somebody, even if you don't speak, to get a bit closer, to find a connection, and then that can't be rushed. So I feel like I always try to make that space. But of course, traveling with Ivo, for example, I'm a parachute journalist, I'm a parachute photographer. I go into Ukraine, I don't know anything about it, but then traveling with Ivo, who knows so much about it and the history, and it was like in the car it was a constant stream of information that was coming, especially with Daria, our driver and local producer, who you both geeked out on history, but it was fantastic. It was such a different way of working and learning about a place. So I think that already was a valuable partnership that I wouldn't have gotten if I would have gone there alone as a photographer. So I do think that it's important to collaborate with people that really know what they're doing and know the area well, and both can benefit from telling the story in a better way. Mine is visual and to do with connecting with people, but I think together as a team we're much stronger, and a team that also has time to communicate and then continue the work. Generally as freelancers we work with journalists and that's it, and then you work with somebody else. There's not enough time to build longer relationships with the picture desk and with journalists, and now we can do that. We can even conceptualize ideas before we go. I mean, this is really kind of a big chance to produce stronger work.
Yeah. May I quickly add something to this, because I think it was a really interesting experience. It took some patience for Dominik as well to, with all the geeking out. But it was really interesting for me because I'm used to working alone mostly. I mean, maybe with someone, with a stringer who will help, but this is sometimes a relationship that's intimate, sometimes not very intimate at all. And I really realized, I came there and I had all these appointments, and I was like, oh, we have to go from this appointment to this appointment to this appointment. And I realized very quickly Dominik is somebody who has his very own way of working. And it, I think, did take us a couple of days to figure this out, because I think at first we were both kind of stressed of not getting what we needed. But one of the stories that's also going to be shown afterwards, where we went to these pro-Russian monks in Pochayev, which is a very holy place for the Russian Orthodox Church in Western Ukraine. We really ended up, so this is the story here. So we ended up going to this place, this monastery in the middle of nowhere, all these Ukrainian checkpoints, people being very skeptical and suspicious what we were doing there. We go there, it's this bizarre world, and you get into these, cathedrals which just completely overwhelm you. And I realized Dominik is somebody who just spends about 20 minutes walking around, just getting a feel for the place. And it ended up being extremely productive for me, because I realized I have to fill this time, and this is actually an opportunity to get a relationship. So I ended up walking around with this deacon who's on the right side there in the elevator, And he was just explaining like all the miracles that had happened in this cathedral to me, like one by one. And we spent almost an hour walking through this cathedral, learning about all these, miracles that, may or may not have happened. But it really gave a kind of density and depth that I don't think I would have ever gotten to if I hadn't been working with a photographer.
Because I'm constantly stalling, I'll be like, they'll be there and then I'll be gone. And then it's like, where did Dominik go? And then I'll just, because we only had about, 4 hours there or something like that?
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours. So trying to produce enough pictures to kind of get a stronger series or a photo essay, I had to kind of dip out and in and disappear and try and grab people. So, yeah.
And Dominik always lets us go up on the roof, and
try and get up.
They didn't want to let us go up because they were worried that the Ukrainian Secret Service would think we were snipers or something. But I think you ended up getting another shot, right? From
Gilles, this must be for you also, let's say, a dream team, because no matter what, it seems it only gets richer in storytelling. They come back, you're even smiling, because you sit there on the desk and all these things come in. Do you have these moments where you're like, yeah, wow, this is why I'm in this job. This is why I want to make these stories and put them in the newspaper. And we will also look at the online, because that's added to it, of course. How do you see that?
Well, it reminds me quite a lot when I was a student. And I have, which is nice to be here and having this festival looking up north. I started when I was a student in the School of Journalism. We had a teacher, and he gave us some lectures, and there was Per Volkfer. He was those days the director of photography for Politiken, and he just triggered a fire in me. So he was the guy who was able to just this flame and fire and passion for photography and journalism. And I remember him being so positively angry and yelling at us students, like, do something. And then I remember this one time that he just had this double spread, and it was just one picture. And like the students were like, wow, this is possible. So yes, working with these guys and trying to lay out and show even our editors that what we are capable of, and we have also a really good relationship with our art director. So we're trying to find a way and prove that we can do some really good work, and it has to be shown. Yeah. So
while we're looking at scrolling through the new Neue Zürcher Zeitung online. What is the difference? Yeah, what is the
Can I just jump in here? Because I think there's an interesting aspect that, if you're just working as a photographer, you can make the strongest work and you do your own thing. But I think there's a partnership that has to happen, and a bit of a choice where when the journalist or when Ivo or Daniel are talking to people, then I will need a photo of that person. And I kind of, sometimes it's difficult because it might not be the right moment or things like that, so I had to make a choice to really stick with that person that maybe Ivo chose or that Daniel chose. Or vice versa, we were documenting the families coming from Mariupol in Zaporizhzhia, and Daniel was another correspondent was already talking to another family, but I had to tell him, no, this is the family. I photographed them in the bus. I photographed them walking out of the bus. This is the family, please. And so he switched. He did the opposite, what I do, and decided to follow the family that I had photos from the beginning. That one girl with the head on the table was Sonia. She's 4 years old and completely exhausted. Because I had a relation, I could feel I could get a relationship with that family. So there's a give and take where sometimes the better picture is over there, but the reporter is talking to this person, so this is where I have to focus. And sometimes it's the other way around. But that's the beauty of this partnership, to make stronger stories, because the text and the pictures have a better combination like that. It's not just random picture, it's really connected to the story and feels more intimate in that way. And sometimes, I think that's quite important.
Gilles, the Neue Zürcher Zeitung has not always been known for his visuals. I mean, this has come to it for a reason, of course, you can't do without. This marrying up of text and imagery is getting in on a higher level constantly. Do you still feel you have to fight for imagery to be part of journalism, or is it well balanced in the Neue Zürcher Zeitung?
I think I remember we had a really big redesign in 2009, and I wasn't part of that yet, but the quality of photography with the redesign that made me convinced that that's a place I want to be. And since we were able to, develop even more and more opportunities and gain some space as well, and I think it just became organic development of, put photography on the same level as text. To be honest, this newspaper is quite an old newspaper, but yeah, I think we go with the time. We're not old-fashioned, we explore a lot of things, and I think a big shift that changed our work as well is a few years back when we decided to work online first. So the team I'm working with, every article we are having in our hands is thought online first, and then we figure out a way for print. But online has so many more opportunities to tell story with photography in combination with text, or even we have nice people working with us on the visual department developing other kind of visual journalism. And the print part is like the easy part, because that's just, two pictures, and then you're on the picture, you're on the layout, and then you're done.
Yeah. This sounds very optimistic, and I like it, because that is something that we need. Photojournalism has been declared it's over or not, but it's not. It's turning into something beautiful. This marrying up of text, imagery, moving image. I like to see three Swiss men being very optimistic.
I think it's very contemporary. I think it is an answer to the crisis in media, and we see this as a newspaper that is, on the one hand, very much about quality, about long reads, about this sort of background information, and that is something that is, of course, extremely important. And I do think there are some resistances against this, more imagery, because there are colleagues who are saying, oh, but then I have to have 2,000 characters less, and that sucks. Yeah. So it's not always without conflicts, but I do think that these longer pieces that are more generous, that also have more images, this is a way of leading readers to more text as well. And it's exactly not the kind of clickbait where everything is read within 15 seconds, but you do see that if a text looks attractive online, that has cool pictures, it catches people's eyes. And these new templates that are available, they look really cool. And even I've been at the paper 7 years, and even in this time, it's a new world, and that doesn't go without conflicts. And it is more work also for me as an author to think about, images to a certain extent as well. It is easy to just write my text and be done with it. But I do think we don't even have a choice, and it is fortunate, I think, that A, we have a certain openness at the paper, and B, we're a paper that actually has also the financial resources and the personal resources to even conceptualize these stories, because I'd say 80 to 90% of all newspapers don't even have this opportunity of even trying stuff out.
Yeah. This is the long night of photography, but we can't go on forever. I thank you for this wonderful word. The man of the word has given us the right words at the end. Dominik, Ivo, Gilles, thank you very much. And keep going. I'm very, very impressed by what I've seen, and I love these big smiles. So keep going. Merci.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is we continue. The bad news is we probably will skip the break. But I'm looking at Lois, and there we are. We have a thank you. We have a 5-minute break, which means be quick. if you need to use the bathroom. Then we will come back with Lois and Nick Brandt. Nick Brandt is calling in from the other side of the ocean. 5 minutes, and then we will continue.
Dear Nick, good evening.
Hello, Lois. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is still awake.
Well, we are having goulash soup waiting, so we know what we do, and it's great to have you. I'm very happy that you found the time to wait for us.
God, I wish I could be there. Thank you for having me, and hello, everybody who's still awake.
We have here a hall, just to give you an idea, because you can see us, we have a hall here with 150 people sitting on coffee table chairs, having a drink, and we had a discussion about war. A few minutes ended it, led by Lars Boering, and before we talked about young Scandinavian photography, and we celebrated a little bit 5 years anniversary of the festival in Baden. So, and now we celebrate photography of your scale, and let's jump into it. Looking to your work, one question came to my mind. I know from so many photographers that it took a long time to find their personal visual language. Was there a moment in your career where you recognized, I did arrive, I'm here, this is me now, this is what I am, what I really was looking for?
Yes, actually, and of course I've prepared pictures because we discussed that as a topic. It took a long time, way too long for my liking, and I'm sure most photographers would say the same thing, which is they wish they'd have got there quicker. I don't feel I really got and found my voice until 2015. So I'd been photographing for 13 years before I thought, okay, this is the work I need to be making. This is challenging. I'm just going to stick on the slideshow. I have to share the screen. Stand by. Oh, Martin, first technical hiccup. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So as soon as that is set, I wanted to make work that was more challenging, more complex, more direct in dealing with the destruction of the environment by humans. I'm going to try now. There we go. And sharing, play. Okay, can you see that clearly?
We can, yes.
Okay.
And I think this is the moment for a welcome applause.
This is Wasteland with Elephant from Inherit the Dust. So this series, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you well, we can see everything well.
Okay. Yeah, so these are life-size panels of unreleased photographs that were printed life-size and then glued to panels and erected in locations where these animals such as these used to roam, but no longer do, due to human influence. And this is when I really, as I say, answering your question, feel like, okay, now I'm dealing with subject matter in a more complex, challenging way that is getting closer to what I want to be doing. And also to be dealing with human beings and how the rural poor are also impacted by environmental degradation. So it's not just animals that are victims, but also humans. Just behind the scenes so that you can see, this is not Photoshop, these were panels that were set up. And this was in a dump site, a giant dump site in Kenya, where all the people that you see in frame live on the periphery and spend their days searching for stuff to sell, but even for food to eat. So it's a very, very hard existence. Here's another one from, this next 4 or 5 photos are from Inherit the Dust. This is a quarry with a lion looking out over what used to be savannah, a chimpanzee, Here's another one from that dump site. And those rhinos do actually live only 10 kilometers from this location. And to my complete surprise, the contours of those hills did line up. But more importantly, of course, are the people who, and this is very much, Lois, this is very much effectively street photography for me. In that the panels are set up and then I just leave them and wait for the people to become accustomed to they don't even notice the panels anymore. They're just getting on with their lives. And so really, when I'm taking the photographs, they don't even know I'm taking them. So for me, this is just kind of elaborate street photography. The only time there was anybody who was staged was this little kid on the left. And my feeling is that we all have, when we're born, an instinctual connection to nature, but as we grow up, a lot of us lose it. But I wanted this one little kid to be the only person who sees these elephants that used to be there. The other kid walking through on the right is complete happenstance. And then all these people are homeless, and I had no idea when I took the photo that they would begin to come out and just sit around while we were photographing. This is sadly a kind of, this dump site becomes a kind of playground for these kids. They've really got kind of nowhere else. And it's sort of a feeling of the animals, both animals and humans, being lost. Again, the beauty of photographing and seeing what happens, not having something too scripted in your head, is that, to my surprise, what turned out to be 5 earth movers, giant earth movers, appeared echoing the giraffe's neck. So that's that series. So, Lois, to answer your question, that was 2015, a long way into my photographic career before I thought, okay, here we go.
It's very, very impressive, and I loved what I see. By the way, what happened to these panels?
Hold on, let me just stop sharing. 1 sec, stand by. You can hear me, right? Still? You still hear me?
Yeah, it's all perfect.
Okay. The panels, I really wanted them to be part of a giant exhibition in Kenya. And we kept them stored in my producer's garage in Nairobi for 3 or 4 years. But there was never a possibility of showing the work. And I think it's such a shame, because one would always like the work to be seen in the places where you're shooting, not just in some, art gallery in some city far, far away.
Well, you did turn into books. So books have a very, very long life. They are for human eternity. So they are in a safe haven, so they will survive for a long, long time, no matter what happened to the panels. But of course, it's a sad thing. We could have shown them here in Baden, for example. But anyway, this is history. How did you move on from Inherited Dust? Is there some connection to what we have in Baden to this year?
Yeah, so the next project, I'm going to share my screen again. Stand by. Share, play, next. Okay, so here we are. Now we're in Baden, Nairobi via Baden. Actually, not Nairobi, sorry, Amboseli.
That's a good one.
So one of the things, really what should have happened, this work should have happened before Inherit the Dust, the work that you've got there in Baden, because this series is symbolic of the invasion of humanity into the places where the animals still exist. But the animals are being pushed out by the human invasion. Then Inherit the Dust is kind of what really should come after, which is, and now everything's gone and all that remains are these kind of ghosts in the landscape. But this is the order of the concepts I came up with them, so there you go. And it needed to be in color. It needed to, and it wanted to really be mostly at night to capture most powerfully, for me, the feeling of the kind of grimy, industrial human world invading this natural world. And so to use these colors in a way that I'd never seen wild animals photographed with these kind of colors. So you've seen, I mean, I presume everybody's walked around the park, so everybody's seen this work. So I guess I don't need to talk too much about it, unless there's questions you want to ask me.
Just go on. We're here to listen to you and not so much to my questions.
Okay, well, I mean, do please ask, because I don't know how much people already know. But this was obviously an incredibly elaborate shoot. I could never. It was a form of obsessive madness to do a shoot of this scale. I could never do it again because of the sheer amount of money, and I feel there are less complicated ways of expressing oneself. So all these sets were recycled. Here's a making of, which you've seen in the panels in the park, where the animals were photographed first, then the sets were built, the sets were recycled through all the various sets back into local communities, and then a few months later, it's as if we were never there. And then, if you're asking about a kind of progression, after that, COVID came along. And I really felt that I needed to, if you'll notice, the one progression there is, oh, here's one more. Forgotten about this. Fantastic. This to me was like a Civil War battlefield from the American Civil War battlefield from the 19th century with the fallen. Sorry, I'm just... and again, what is consistent with the previous work is not directing people. And that extends into The Day May Break, which is leaving people to just find their places and leave them until they're kind of bored, tired, and only then do I start photographing them when they kind of aren't even aware that I'm photographing. And I find that for me, gives me a more real, a more natural portrait of those people. And it's important through all these photographs in this empty world as well, that they are also swept along by the tide of progress. They are not the invaders. They are not the aggressors. The off-screen villains are politicians and industrialists, but these people are just swept along, as I say, by the tide of progress. And so then going in finally into The Day May Break, where people literally really do come into the foreground and into focus. This was a case of, with climate breakdown, how that impacts both humans and animals, how environmental destruction impacts both. And I wanted them in this world where the fog was symbolic of the natural world that we once knew, rapidly vanishing from view. And so these people are victims of climate change. A lot of these people are climate refugees, and the animals are all rescues. And as you know, again, they're all photographed within one frame, in camera. And yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm rabbiting on. Please ask questions.
Well, first I would like to say that you're absolutely crazy.
Thank you.
What you do, this is so amazing, so outstanding. When I see the images of the making of, it's just unbelievable. And the intention of it,
The thing is, the beauty of photography, and I'm sure most of the photographers who are in the audience, I don't know everybody who's there tonight.
There are only photographers and journalists here.
Yes.
And a few friends.
We are obsessed, and I'm very fortunate that once I get an obsession for an idea, I'm able to, hold on, let me just go back to, hold on, stop share. When I get an idea, I'm very fortunate that I can go and execute it. And I can't actually, even if I'm in danger of bankrupting myself, losing my house, I have to do it. It becomes an overriding obsession. And as long as I can keep affording to do that, I will. I mean, I think of somebody like Erik, who I think's there, Erik Johansson. Hello, Erik, if you're there.
He's
look
here,
at
yes.
his work. Yeah, I mean, look at the scale of his work. I mean, that's all, that's not CG. And it's a big, ambitious undertaking, but you're driven to do it.
Let me stick with the word obsession. Because besides being a photographer of a very, very rare kind, you decided to move a few steps forward, away from photography into the real life, not just reporting, analyzing, documenting, but acting. And sometimes I say in some speech that I know quite a few photographers who act like a one-person NGO, acting, but you built an NGO. You did put into life the Big Life Foundation, which is a company basically. It's an NGO, but you do real groundbreaking work in the field. Would you be so kind to share what you had in mind and where you stand and where you would like to head to?
Well, excuse me. One thing I just want to make clear is, if there is a pre-existing organization who's already doing the work that you feel can help, there's absolutely no need. There's no need to subject yourself to the torture of starting your own organization. I would gladly have not started Big Life if I didn't feel there was a need to fill a vacuum. That if there are organizations that we can donate to that can fulfill the necessary job, there's no need for that. But in this instance, there was a vacuum. When I was in Amboseli in Kenya in 2010, animals, elephants in particular, were being poached almost every week, and the governmental wildlife services weren't doing enough because they only protect a small park, and there were very few non-profits on the ground. So something kind of had to be done. And I was in, again, a very privileged position because I was able to go to wealthy collectors of my photographs, living in America, which for all the craziness here, still is the best country in the world for philanthropy. So I was able to go to one of the wealthy collectors of my work in New York, and she wrote a check for $1 million. And with that money, we were able to hire rangers, buy land cruisers, build outposts, and start arresting poachers who had been operating with impunity for, I'm just going to share the screen again, for many years. Stand by. Let me just do this. So this is Igor. He's like the unfortunate poster child for Big Life. I took this photograph in 2007, and it was probably this level of trust that he allowed me to get this close to him. That also was the cause of his death when poachers killed him for his ivory and hacked out the ivory from his face. probably while he was still alive, because that's kind of how you have to do it. And then this is one of the rangers from Big Life holding the tusks of an elephant killed also at the hands of poachers. There is no elephant left alive on the planet with tusks that size anymore. And then this is 22 Big Life Rangers holding the tusks of, again, elephants killed at the hands of man. So yeah, I mean, here's a guy. I've got a. Oh, so I should just say. So that was in 2010. Now you cut forward to 2022, and all those blue dots are. There's like 40 outposts and about, I think, 30, 20. I can't remember the exact number of mobile ranger units. And with that, the incidence of the rangers now protect 1.6 million acres. I always forget what that is in hectares, but I think it's something like 700,000 hectares. And with that, the populations of elephants, lions, giraffes, cheetahs are all on the increase. And it also, Big Life does way, way, way more than just anti-poaching. And the reason for its success is because it works with the community. The ethos being, if conservation supports the community, then the community will support conservation. So it's not just there are 500 employees working for Big Life, all of whom are locally employed, but we help with wildlife, with scholarships, with farmers protecting their crops from being raided, livestock herders when their livestock is killed by predators. So there's huge support from the community, which is really the only way you can be successful in 21st century in Africa. You can't just expect the place to be protected because it's beautiful. It's not enough. So there you go.
What would you need? What could we do something to support this? Is there anything, if you would have, just throw a wish in the air and we catch it?
Well, actually, excuse me, I would actually wish that everybody, forget about Big Life per se, but everybody, we are in a time of incredible crisis with climate breakdown and biodiversity loss, habitat destruction, plastics, everything. And to me, I can sum it up with 2 words, which is Greta Thunberg. That one little girl alone on a street in Stockholm a few years ago started a global movement, creating more awareness, getting millions of kids around the world to go on strike for the climate, and showing that each of us in our own way can do something useful. And it doesn't have to be, finding a billionaire to give you $1 million for your foundation to start it up. It can just be down to the smallest things. I don't need to start listing all the things off, but all of us can do something. And that to me is billions of small actions can add up to something meaningful and monumental. So that's my wish, that everybody engages. There's a book I've just finished reading called The Good Ancestor. And as the title implies, it's about how can all of us become better ancestors for those that follow. We're talking about billions and billions of people as still unborn, trillions of animals still unborn, who are going to be coming into a world that we have made the choices to either make worse for them or better for them. And I think all of us need to consciously be good ancestors.
Your words make me move between being really angry and sad at the same time. But I hope that everyone in the audience here tonight will take your advice to contribute, to think about what to contribute. And I'm sure that we will take your words in our hearts home tonight. But before...
let me just say, sorry to interrupt, but the line that I've used hundreds of times now is it's better to be angry and active than angry and passive. That positive anger is motivating. It gives you energy and focus. It galvanizes you and stops you sinking into despair and frustration. And so I think to be angry and active. So I thought of that because of what you just said, which is you said it makes you both angry and sad. But the point is, you can channel that anger.
But you give the best example. Watching you, you are angry and active. This is what your message is, and your body language relates to us. And you're really a role model for many, many people to come. Maybe some of them are not even born yet. It's beautiful that you refer to Greta Thunberg, because she really stands as a symbol out for the young people, and they are the most concerned and the most, of course, affected by all of this. And we still had choices, but maybe they don't have many. Let's see what happens next. We just had a 1.5 hour discussion about the war in Ukraine and about war in general. And we witness in Europe that many politicians use the energy crisis caused by the war in Ukraine to turn the wheel backwards when it comes to environmental issues. So we know what that means, even politically. For example, the coal mines in Poland, they will be running. That means with all the political impacts from the coal miners, the political society in Poland will stay as it is. And this is not change. Not at all, nothing in the direction you're thinking about. But before we depart, I know from our talks when we met in Lagacy and on many phone calls that you still keep on working on The Day May Break.
Yeah.
And what we see here in Baden is kind of a part 1, if you will. And in the meantime, there's a part 2, and you promised that you might share the work of the part 2, just photographed a few months ago, and hardly not published or not published at all yet. Well, maybe you tell us about it, and please be so kind, share this beautiful new work with us.
Sure, thank you. So The Day May Break is a global series. It just happened to have started in Africa because it was where I could get in during COVID. So chapter 2 was photographed in Bolivia to represent South America, and hopefully chapter 3 will be shooting next spring. Chapter 2 comes out in a month. There'll be the book in the spring, exhibitions of the new work coming up in places like New York and Shanghai. So I'm just going to share the screen. I've just put in a few. Oh, sorry, stand by. Hold on, share screen. Okay, here we go. So again, everything is shot in camera. Is that, oh, sorry, is it sharing, Lois? No, it's not, is it?
So far, not yet. Now it's coming up. It's coming up.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so these are all photographed in one sanctuary in Bolivia with various species. Because so many of the animals are so small, actually, the animals are in the foreground in a lot of them. This is a little howler monkey. A sloth with, name's Ruth, got the titles bottom left-hand corner. Juana Antarcus, this is a beautiful Andean bear. So all these people were have been impacted quite profoundly by climate change. That's why they were chosen. They came from all over the country to the sanctuary where we photographed. Something like the jaguar is actually not habituated, but there's a giant sheet of glass between Luis and Hernak, the jaguar, so that it appears like they're together, but actually there's a sheet of glass. It's an owl monkey, and yeah. That's a sloth again. I've deliberately, kind of following the Greta Thunberg sort of discussion, think of the young girls looking more defiantly, more angrily into camera, while those who are older are more resigned and look away. It's another howler monkey. And that's where I really think about little Bolivian Greta Thunberg. It's the only time in any of the series so far that animal and human have joined together. That was by accident. It wasn't by accident. I mean, the monkey just walked over to her and got on her arm. And then there you can see, like with the bear, there were electric wires that it was used to. In its enclosure, it's used to an electrified fence. So we had electric wires, so it knew not to come near the cast or me. So there you go. That's a few of the new work. Just going to hit stop share.
Dear Nick, thank you for sharing this. And let me end with some words what you usually do not like to hear so much. You're a very great photographer. You're a great man with an unbelievable big soul. You have my deepest respect, and I can't wait to embrace you when I see you again. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you all have a good evening. Are we no longer live, or can you still hear me?
So this is Nick. So there are two more points. There's 10 years of Global Peace Photo Award. It's mounted on a very famous song, the winning images of the last 10 years. It's 50 or 60 images. And after that, I would ask you, all the photographers and all the people of the leading team, to come to the stage to make a farewell photograph. And then goulash soup. Every year, we receive up to 20,000 images from up to 160 countries from around the globe. And this is what peace does look like, what we are wishing for, a better life. And now, please, dear photographers and leading teams, join me on the stage. And the others, take pictures, please.